Good afternoon and welcome to the June 2021 meeting of the Pittsburgh Land Bank. I'd like to ask that we do a roll call.
Slide, please. Reverend Burgess, Dr. Jamil Bey,
Present.
Councilman Lavelle,
Here.
Doug Anderson, Senator Fontana,
Here.
Council President Kel Smith, Councilperson Steve Mazza,
Thank you for that. Here.
Wanda Wilson,
So we do not have a quorum for today's meeting, which means that we are going to proceed only with those items that we are permitted to vote on. And that would exclude the minutes, but we still can go through the reports to keep ourselves updated and the community updated. So thank you for that. We also do not have anyone who's registered for public comment. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And so we'll move in right along into the agenda and get to the chairman's report. So I'm assuming that that would be you directly updating us, Director Walker?
Yes, that would be me. So Reverend Burgess is not here, and I don't know if he had anything that he wanted to say to the board today, but we are prepared to provide a staff level report. I'm very pleased to announce and welcome the onboarding of Jen Shaber. She is the URA's new program assistant who is supporting the Development Services Group. And so Jennifer is here with us today, and you will begin to see her ramp up in her administrative role to support the PLB proceedings and to support Greg Miller as he starts to operationalize some of the PLB's day-to-day business. Greg will also provide the board with an update as to where we are with the Pittsburgh Property Reserve 1.0. We know that the long-term intention is for the PLB to provide a more functional land recycling program in the city of Pittsburgh. But before we get to that, we first want to address some of the pain points that exist for the community within the Property Reserve 1.0. So he's done a tremendous amount of work over the last 60 days or so to start to build intentional relationships with community development corporations who engage with the Property Reserve 1.0. And so he will provide some visibility into how those that relationship building exercise is going. So you can advance to the next slide. All right, so a little bit more about Jen's role. And Jen, I'll give you a moment here to say hello to the board. As I mentioned, she's a program assistant in the Development Services Unit at the URA, which is where the PLB now nests as an affiliate of the URA. She will be instrumental to the day-to-day support for this notion of having more coordinated land recycling functions happening here in Pittsburgh. So she will be organizing and responding to property inquiries. She will be helping to organize some of the new and existing PLB information that's being developed, helping us to prepare for these board meetings, and also assisting with scheduling any PLB related meetings. So Jennifer, again, welcome. And if you want to take a moment to say hello to the board, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, so as Diamante said, my name's Jen, and I'll be helping out in an administrative capacity. So I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really excited to get to know all of you a bit better as we, move through these board meetings and move through all the different stuff the Land Bank has going on.
All right. So I'm going to pause there in case the board has any questions about what's been presented so far. All right, hearing none, I will move through.
No questions real quick, but a comment. I
Sure.
said in several community meetings that I've attended in the last 3 weeks, both Greg and Diamante, your names have come up. There is a general shift in optimism about the land bank and the work. And so what you're doing to engage community organizations now is appreciated. And I've heard that from at least 4, different neighborhoods. And
That's
so
wonderful.
keep up the work.
It's wonderful to hear. it's necessary. And so we feel very fortunate to be in a position with the world opening back up. I think that some of these meetings are even happening in real time in person, which is wonderful. So credit to Greg, as he's really been boots on the ground, carrying forth the vision. So Greg, I'm going to turn this over to you to share with the board a little bit about the tenor of those meetings and what the goals are so that they can understand, to Dr. Bay's point, the work that's happening and how CDCs are responding to those efforts.
Sure. Thank you, Diamante, and thank you, Dr. Bay. It's encouraging to know that the meetings have been well received. You know, since the property reserve as it currently exists today closed at the beginning of 2020, the city's no longer accepting new properties into the reserve. And so because of that, we know that the Pittsburgh property reserve will eventually transition into a property reserve 2.0. And so to really ramp that up and just really start to build allies with the different community groups and different nonprofit development stakeholders throughout the city, I've been engaging, and I know Diamante has as well, has been engaging with a lot of different stakeholders related to the property reserve and thinking about how can we best align our efforts to get these properties that have been stuck in the reserve for a number of years, how can we get them out of the door and move them to a productive end use much quicker. So like I said, I've been meeting with these groups on a weekly basis, having a lot of really productive conversations with the goal of really just building partnerships with these groups, but then also getting these properties that they've put into the property reserve out of the reserve much quicker. Part of that work, which has been very fruitful to date, has been participating in the monthly vacant property working group sessions. Those are actually held on the same day as our land bank board meeting. So I get that in the morning, and it's been really helpful just to kind of engage with all of those different members and learn about what their priorities are. And you know, get kind of on the ground feedback from them around what they want the land bank to do and how we can best support them. Next slide, please. But really through this work of sort of engaging the different members of the vacant property working group, which includes a lot of the CDCs that I've been in contact with and a lot of the different nonprofit development partners, I've been able to kind of work closely with the city finance and real estate team to look at what the current list of the property reserve is. And I've really tried to group it into three primary buckets. One is just understanding where the properties are to date, and if they have been, if they've been provided a deed and they're ready to be developed, but they just haven't been picked up yet from the different CDC groups, just really trying to understand sort of where they are in their process for getting these properties to an active use. And then also, I think more importantly to that end, this last bucket that I've really started to group these properties in is thinking about where the land bank can really start to be a critical tool in helping with the land recycling. And so I've been working closely, again, like I said, with the city team, with these CDC groups to say, okay, I see that these properties have been stuck in the reserve because they're waiting on quiet title actions. So really working with them to say the land bank can take these through a separate action, expedite the process, and hopefully get it into your hands quicker. And so I've started to really just organize that information and building those connections with these groups to hopefully this work will start to inform the Pittsburgh Property Reserve 2.0. So both from this process, and then also there's no shortage of information that suggests how the land bank can operate better, how the property reserve can operate better. So really taking all that feedback from different stakeholder groups, and especially the Vacant Property Working Group Committee. They had a list of recommendations for the property reserve. Taking all of that feedback, that will really inform our property reserve 2.0. So the property reserve information that we're using to date has really been identified by different CDC groups. And we're also working with properties that have a demonstrated end use with a particular focus on affordable housing, because we really want the land bank to be an efficient tool that helps get these properties moving to an active use, but we really want it to serve the best benefits of communities. And part of that is by providing affordable housing.
The only other thing that I will note, that was a wonderful update, Greg, thank you. So that the board we've talked a little bit about this first sort of wave of 50 properties that would become the PLB's portfolio. That portfolio will be comprised of those Pittsburgh Property Reserve sites that we are actively working with the CDCs to not only provide them with the tools that the land bank can provide, but also making sure that we are pairing them with technical assistance and financing resources at the URA so that those projects become viable. I've identified that as a gap that we really need to do a much better job of integrating their land recycling efforts with some of the tools that are available to them through the URA's resources and programs. And then the second part of that is beginning to communicate that refresh to the board by way of the PLB strategic plan that was done in 2018. So we are using the work with the vacant property working group and a lot of the outreach efforts that I am doing, as well as Greg, to start to inform that strategic plan and to make sure that it has a grassroots emphasis, which is why you will see a focus on affordable housing at the center, because I think that is the actual problem that we are trying to solve. And there's a way to use underperforming publicly held assets to reach that end. So the work is getting very exciting. Greg and I are super motivated. He and the team are continue to work hard, and I really wanted to use today just to give the board some visibility to that.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So it's great. I'm getting that the title clearing is the biggest, I guess, hurdle or time consuming why these properties are sitting in the reserve. I assume that's what you were saying. So you're in the process of clearing about 50. I think you said, Diamante.
Yes.
So not every neighborhood, I would think, has an active CDC.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't find an active CDC that has a focus on the affordable housing, which is the goal, then what happens? Is there other people out there or groups out there that we can market it to?
Yeah, so part of what we do when a neighborhood does not have a very active CDC, we use the PLB sort of sister entity, which is the PHDC, the Pittsburgh Housing Development Corporation. And so a lot of communities may not have CDCs that focus squarely on development, but they have community-based organizations that care about the development of the neighborhood, but may not have the capacity to take on affordable housing development projects. So we have the PHDC intercede and begin to work with them and coordinate with them in order to bring those ideas to fruition. I'm going to be very transparent here. There are not enough dollars in the ecosystem right now to really help that work, to expand that work at scale. So we are at a bit of a disadvantage, but the intent and the will is there to do it. It is my sincere hope that with the incoming ARP dollars, we can start to prioritize the work of CDCs, the Pittsburgh Housing Development Corporation, and the PLB to intercede and fill the gap on some of those activities.
There's groups like Habitat for Humanity out there that maybe be interested in some of these things. The last thing we don't want is to carry an enormous inventory, I'm sure, because then it comes down to how do we maintain these properties in the summer, cutting the grass, and in the winter and all that kind of stuff. So we need to be very active in trying to move the properties to the right CDCs and the right groups who are going to follow through on our mission. So
can I add to that too, Senator Fontana? I just want to say our area, District 2, we only have one CDC in Mount Washington, but we are working with a little bit with McKees Rock CDC. We're debating about that one, but we're also working with the MWCDC to possibly expand and do some work into District 2. But Richard Snipe has been doing an amazing job in our area. And I think if he had more money, he would be doing a gazillion more things. I think that, and he works with residents in each one of our neighborhoods that he's working in. In Sheridan, he has a group. In Elliott, he has a group. And there's other places. He's working in Beachview, a little bit in Chartier City. But I think that he needs more money, and two, we are working towards that goal. But I have a concern, period, with CDCs being the way that we're going, in nonprofits in general. In our side of town, we have not had good experiences with nonprofits. So,
right, and I think you're right. I'm happy, by the way, to meet with those folks with you at some point to make sure, and the oversight of that, obviously, as they take these properties for those of us that are elected in those areas, to make sure they're doing the right thing with them and they're not, just flipping them or doing things that are not supposed to do with them. So I'm happy to get involved. I think you're right that there are CDCs that aren't very good, quite frankly. And there are others that are. And there are some groups that I think we can talk about that aren't necessarily a CDC, but are doing good things with affordable housing around the city. So we need to
Please connect
identify
them
them
with
and work
us.
together.
Yes,
Yeah.
please connect us with them. And I hear the frustration. I mean, a lot of it is really resource constriction and lack of capacity. And so Rich Snipe is the Deputy Executive Director of the PHDC and has done some amazing work in the West End. A lot of our affordable housing sales have happened in the West End. So we know this model works. We've created partnerships with Habitat for Humanity and some other, community-minded folks that want to do this work. And Greg, again, he wants the names and contact information of anybody willing to engage in these conversations. And the good news, I think, is that, some of these URA-owned parcels the title's already cleared. We
That's
just
good.
need to find an end user to work with us. And that's going to be a very transparent and open process that will honor nonprofits for sure, but will also allow local residents, local business owners that want to remain in communities an opportunity to take on those sites. A lot of very similar to what we see happening on Center Avenue. So I don't think that any one method is going to solve it. I think it's going to take partnerships across the spectrum, and we've got to be open and amenable to that.
And I just want to add that we also do have a board member on PHDC, and I want to thank Chris Eberline for serving on that board.
He's
And I know he was
fantastic.
really excited to have a voice there. So
He's fantastic.
The list of properties, are we able to see them? And as they come off and are available, obviously I have a real estate hat also. I'm happy to help promote and to talk to the CDCs and hook up with the council person of that district, or I overlap a lot of different council folks, as you know. So I'm happy to talk with them to make sure we're all on the same page, and it's very transparent about who's going to work with these properties. So
we love that. We love that. And so great. And so you see a little bit of a snapshot there. The Vacant Property Working Group has a master list. And these are properties these folks have put in back in 2015, 2016, and they've been waiting on government to move. And so that's why we're addressing those issues first, because I think Director Wilson has talked about this. You put a property in the property reserve, it's a structure. 5 years later, it's a vacant lot because the elements have taken it down. And so we just want to stop the bleed there first. And while we're doing that, I think you see that last bullet point that says we build this new model that is wholly transparent, wholly accessible to the public. And I've been looking at some beta testing that the team has been doing, and I'm very excited about what's about to transpire. But we could really use your help, Senator Fontana, and all of the electeds on the call to build those relationships and to make sure that we're building a robust process that people in Pittsburgh feels proud of.
Right. Thank you.
Hi, Monty. Can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Are you guys trying to work with Rebuilding Together Pittsburgh at all? Have you contacted them?
Yes, so I have the new executive director is onboarding. We have had some communication. I do have it in my notes to reach out now that he's had a few weeks on the job to begin to have a conversation with him. We do have an active partnership with Rebuilding Together Pittsburgh in the Upper Hill around a lot of the work that the Shenley Heights Collaborative has been doing, particularly their facade program and doing some home improvements in partnership with the Neighborhood Resilient Project. So I do have a relationship, but now that they have new leadership, we're going to re-engage and again, try to bring them into the fold as well, because they can help do some capacity building around our rehab programs.
If you need help with that, I sit on that board for the Carpenters. So
fantastic.
I've been working with Alan Cisco for a lot of years. So let me know if I can help.
I will. I have a note here to reach out.
I'll just add that Steve was also helpful when they worked in Sheridan and Chartier City. So thank you, Steve.
No problem, Teresa, anytime.
So it appears that a lot of these pieces are coming together. And that's good news for all of the residents of the city. And with the addition of Council President Carol Smith, we do have a quorum. And so at the conclusion of your report, we'll go back and revisit the minutes and see if we can get those adopted.
Excellent. I think that we did, Greg, I think that concludes our the executive director's report. I'm going to turn it over to Greg to walk you through the finance report.
Thank you.
All right, so yeah, so two of the usual suspects. We have the Post-Gazette notice that went out for the public notice. And then we also have the Google G Suite. But we have two new charges. One is for the PLB 2020 audit. And then we have a fourth one with Dickey McCamey and Chicote, which is for some title service work, which brings the grand total to $4,085.32.
Thank you. Are there any questions about these expenses? Okay, if not, moving right along into the legislative update. Senator Fontana.
Thank you, sir. As you can see for what's up on the screen, you know, it's pretty self-explanatory for the first two, I guess, but there was testimony from Greg Miller. Comments were well received by the committee. We're very receptive of our recommendations of the municipal claims tax claim law and the Conservatory Act. We have a lot of conversations and continue to have conversations about these things because it all relates to blight and how not just obviously in our in my senatorial district, but all through the state, there's issues with blight. So everyone's interested in that, and we're going to keep pushing forward to try to enact the legislation and financial support going forward to help the older neighborhoods that deal with this. House Bill 610 passed through the Urban Affairs Committee 24-1. But as you know, the process is as it goes through a House committee, it needs to go to the floor. And if it passes to the floor, then since it's a House bill, it'll come over to the Senate, go into the Urban Affairs Housing Committee in the Senate. So, and then back to the floor of the Senate and then to the governor. So it's a process, but it made the first hurdle. So that's a good thing. The municipal claims tax law we've been working on back and forth. I think David's on this call. We're trying to engage everyone, all the folks that are engaged or should be engaged and have a say, and been back and forth. But we're hoping that the draft was received back and shared with David, I think yesterday or the day before. My staff has talked with him and he said he has a board meeting this afternoon, so he probably wouldn't have a chance to look at it before today, and I'm not sure if he did, but everyone needs to look at it, make sure it contains all the changes that are requested, and we can look at it again, and if there's no additional changes, we can get a bill number assigned to it and get it in the works for the introduction. So once David okays everything, I think this is as good as it's going to get as far as the other stakeholders, and that's the school district, obviously. I'm not sure we can completely please them, but we need to move forward and get it going. And I think it's a good bill, and I think it's something that will help land banks, not just, it'll be a symbol or a model for others also, I think, as we move forward once we get it done. But it's still, we got to get through the hurdles of the committees and get it on the floor. So this is the first step, and we're real close to pulling the trigger on it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'm just thinking here about, as we think about new folks on the board, as folks are rotating off, when that does come up, how useful it might be to have a school board member present, represented, not that those folks have much more room in their schedule, but I think it would be a valuable perspective, since we're partners in this.
I think it's critical. I have to say, I think the PLB's relationship with the three taxing bodies, that is the way that we will be able to transform land. We can improve processes, and there are a lot of things that we can do, but if we don't make the structural fix around how we engage with the 3TB, we're going to continue to have some of the protracted problems that we're experiencing. But we are doing our best on the staffing side to at least start to put together a program that makes sense. I would encourage the board to think about its composition and the inclusion of a school board member.
And I agree. One of the hurdles is the, lack of communication sometimes, and you have to, bring everybody up to speed and gain the trust that we're all working together here. It's not, we're like the city's trying to do something that's going to hurt the school district, and that seemed to be the first hurdle we had to overcome here. So I think ongoing communication will definitely be a positive. So
our staff has been meeting regularly with the school board staff to continue to work through these issues.
Great.
One of the things that I've stressed is that we cannot engage at the project point, or when we need folks to make a very important decision. We have to engage when we're thinking through and doing some ideation around how things are going to flow, so that the power feels equitable and everybody feels represented. So that's
Very
something
good.
that we've begun to do. We're going to have to continue to do work to build that trust. And I think it's not just exclusive of the PLB, but also, city representation will also have to be a part of that critical conversation.
Very good. Thank you.
Great. So let's put that on council folks, Councilman Lavelle, President Kell Smith. Let's put that on our agenda to think about as we're moving the board forward. How do we make that as inclusive as a part of the board? Is there any new business?
None that we have proposed.
And no public comments. Do we request comments is there any public? I can't tell from this Zoom thing.
I believe we have a member of the press present, as well as one other, I believe a member of the public. I think you have the ability to ask for public comment if you'd like to do that.
I'm on my porch and there's a truck going by, so. Yes, we will open for public comment if there is any. Seeing none. Let's go back and revisit the May minutes. The proposal to review and adopt the minutes that you've received.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor of approving?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none, the minutes are adopted. We'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Right. Okay, folks, thank you. We'll see you again next month. The next meeting is July 9th.